Alrighty, this is Food for Thought podcast number 3. This is Zach, and Hemi's here, and William's here. Everyone say hello.
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 Alrighty, so basically this is going to be the Food for Thought podcast number 3. Unfortunately, Abiyomi wasn't able to join us again. So, yeah, we have to talk about this summit stuff that went on. This big moves that are being made, big waves being made as far as it goes with United States and North Korea. So, Hemi, you'd like to start us out with a quote from a source of AP News?
Yes, and this is Donald Trump after the summit. Pretty much, I was going to cover something dealing with the summit, but it was a lot of, like Trump would say, like a first date, everybody was smiling, everybody was giving good gestures, so going to skip that, and I'm going to go right to what he said after that, the day of the summit. It says here, Trump seemed equally ecstatic as he landed Wednesday in Washington following the summit. He declared on Twitter that America and the world can sleep well tonight. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea, Trump wrote, even though North Korea has yet to give up any of its fissile material, estimated by independent experts to be enough for between about a dozen and 60 nuclear bombs. Mike Pompeo rejected the suggestion that Trump's Polynesia, I don't know how to say that word, this word right here.
Polynesian? Polynesian?
Yeah, something assertion. I'm going to read that.
Oh, a little bit of pronunciation.
Isn't
that should be Polynesian.
Polynesia.
Polynesia. Assertion was premature. He said Trump was proceeding with eyes wide open to the prospect that diplomacy may falter, and that Trump was merely reflecting the historic nature of his confab with Kim. The Korean War ended in 1953 without a peace treaty, leaving the U.S. and North Koreans in a technical state of war.
So, yeah, it's interesting that this basically, to summarize it, because we don't need no Polynesia to, confuse people. Basically, what this is saying, Trump is saying that, hey, we did good, we're, getting the ball rolling and stuff, feeling out how this diplomacy is going to go. And people are still saying, well, they still are in control of these materials. And I'd like to bring up, too, and this is an argument that a lot of people are bringing up right now, is that we've been at this stage with North Korea. This is nothing new. 1985, we were at this cusp of this type of diplomacy going on. We had it in 1992. I think an event during the 2000s. I can't really for sure know, but I know 2012 or 2013, that's when we had the last one, the latest one. And of course now we're doing this. Again, this is going to be, trip number 5 or so down the line where we're at this area, and it's not really known, how's everything going to go down, because there's still a lot of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of uncertainty saying that because the past 25 years for North Korea, they've had a very shaky history with saying that they're going to do something and then they kind of say, nah, or they change their minds or something happens, So, yeah, I guess we have to see about that. I also have another thing here that comes after the summit. It says here, with the Trump-Kim summit concluded, this is AP News, still, the baton was being passed to the lower-level U.S. and North Korean officials who Pompeo said would likely resume meeting as early as the next week to hash out details of a disarmament deal, sure to be a complex and contentious process. He said that the U.S. was hopefully was hopeful North Korea would take major disarmament steps before the end of Trump's first term in office, which concludes January 2021. And then just the 25 years, but I was saying that it says here that a promise has been made, and it has gone several times. Like North Korea has gone back from its word. This also another statement here. But it says Pompeo bristled at reporters who pressed him about the apparent omission, calling questions on the topic insulting and ridiculous. So he didn't want people to see, like, because Trump was talking about like keeping the eyes wide open. It's like, wait, you're saying that everything, like, you're set, everybody can chill, sleep, they don't have to worry about anything. Yet Trump says what he said with the eyes wide open. Pompeo didn't like anybody questioning that. He's just like, no, this is going to be irreversible. This is going to happen, unlike the other times. So they feel confident.
And what I want to go, and I want to backtrack, because right now we've been talking a lot about after the summit, but even during the summit, right? So it's a lot of symbolic gestures. The way Kim Jong-un, agreed to meet in Singapore, the being neutral ground. They're not really so involved as far as that goes. Even Trump doing some weird things like saluting a general, all these things. Just a lot of symbolic gestures are being done. Whether good or bad, it's basically how it's going. I think at the end of the day, the goal is for something to be done here. As far as it goes, getting some sort of deal done, like Trump withdrawing the military exercises being done in South Korea.
Games.
Yeah, the war games.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't remember war games for a minute there.
I have something on that. Yeah, I think.
And all these things, but I noticed the main thing is that they're saying Trump's giving up too much. Trump's doing this. For once, I would like to say, let's just sit back and see how this goes, right? Of course, we've been down this road. He's not winning a Nobel Peace Prize by any means. Well, I can't say that now because he might get. It gets into some murky waters. But as far as that goes, I know a lot of people are saying we should not even be entertaining this subject based on various reasons or whatnot, which we'll get into later on in the video. But I feel like we need to at least start. We need to start doing something now rather than later, and at least starting with these gestures. Not the gestures that he was doing as far as like saluting and all that, but as far as diplomatic gestures. Starting to get this ball rolling and hopefully accomplish something, because again, we started doing this, it was with Kim Jong-un's father, right? A different thing. Now we have Kim Jong-un, who may be the same thing as his father or grandfather, however have you, but it's at least somewhere to start. It's someone, newer that we're talking to and things of that nature.
Yeah. I wanted to cover a little bit on the war games.
Okay.
Because this is a gesture that North Korea kind of saw as they didn't like it. Says here, President Donald Trump promised to end war games with South Korea, because they're doing it with South Korea. They're like side by side with them, calling them provocative after meeting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on June 12th of the summit. His announcement appeared to catch both South Korea and the Pentagon by surprise. Because it's like, why is Trump doing, people might be thinking that he's doing too much and for little in return, but
you have two things in play right there. Of course, South Korea is our ally. Japan's our ally. And we want to stay on good relations with all these other powers that are over there, China, Russia, all that. But what I think is a big player in this is Japan, right? Because Japan ruled over North Korea from, I think, the early 1900s until World War II. And that allowed the Kim Jong-un dynasty to come into power, right? So they rose up through that oppression, they fought back and whatnot. Right now, I think Japan is kind of like, you're our ally, we need your help. we want you to have this show of military might over there. Whereas North Korea sees it as something that they don't really want to see being done. They think maybe it's disrespectful in ways and stuff of that nature. So.
Yeah, I actually have something to explain more about the stuff in Japan, like at least their agenda wise. Yeah, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. I think I'm saying that right. Abe is worried about Japan's interest being left out of the diplomatic overtures with North Korea. Japanese officials have seen Donald Trump's softening rhetoric toward North Korea as a potential indicator that Pyongyang, I think that's you say that. That's the capital of North Korea, right?
Yeah, Pyongyang.
Might obtain an easing of economic sanctions without making a genuine concessions. Abe is particularly worried that Trump might strike a deal with Kim that allows him to keep short and mid-range missiles capable of striking Japan.
Yeah.
He has also begged Trump to raise the fates of several Japanese citizens taken by North Korea. You know, he visited the week before to bring that up to him, to press that.
And I think it was even recently that we had somebody undercover go over there and get some of our people. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know the legitimacy of that. But as far as like a CIA operative going over there and taking some people out. And of course that is, you know, on the top of things being done diplomatic-wise, that's on the top of the list. Taking out people who are in prison, these prison camps that are in North Korea and stuff of that nature, for everyone involved, right? So, William, would you like to add anything to that, or as far as that goes? Oh, you're getting ready, geared up for something else? Alright, well, basically want to switch gears and stuff of that nature, and I want to talk about it because this whole North Korea discussion got kind of hot a few years back. And it's an unlikely source. And he got hot during the 90s and won 5 championships. This discussion is now going to take part of Dennis Rodman, right? So we have a whole bunch of pictures up on the screen. But I want to talk about Dennis Rodman, right? So Dennis Rodman, I think it was with Vice or something like that, was going over to North Korea. And he was going to, you know, like, I think, take a view of the North Korean and stuff like that. But well, it came under the eye of Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un's a big basketball fan, which is interesting. So these two got to meet each other, and they became very good friends, which was a big thing back in the day. It was like, you know, what is going on here? This guy is doing all these things, and he's just he's like appearing up in this, like an unlikely diplomat. All these things are going into play, like, oh, if he's over there, he needs to start doing this. But the thing is that Dennis Rodman was over there, and he became friends with Kim Jong-un, of course, through their mutual love of basketball. So we have, you know, this sort of thing going on where they're, you know, they get a first, like, joining of something at least that they have mutual interest on. And that will lead to the term of basketball diplomacy. And this is in 2013, I think maybe the early 2013 that this started happening. I think after the stuff with North Korea started to get like hot in the area with all their displays of whatever they have you, their military parades and stuff would ramp up and stuff of that nature. So you have Dennis Rodman come back to the U.S. and the way he's perceived is vastly different. So they start talking to him and say, okay, there was a particular thing. If you watch it, it may be hard to understand what Dennis Rodman tries to communicate. But he says really good things. Like, I'm telling you, if he could articulate himself better, it would be so much different. Like, I'm not even lying. So, he's in an interview with George Stephanopoulos and from ABC. And George Stephanopoulos is going in on the whole thing, like he's being very aggressive. In the interview, he's taking control over it, but Dennis Rodman is kind of deflecting that anger and trying to view Kim Jong-un in a presence of humanity first, right? Which he's not ignoring the fact that he's done bad things, he's doing things, the prison camps and whatnot, but he's trying to understand Kim, the person, before he understands Kim, the leader, right? The leader of North Korea. So, and of course, I'm going to say the basketball stuff again, but George Stephanopoulos is going in, he's not my friend, whatchamacallit, Dennis Rodman saying he's my friend, I'm getting to know more about him, he's allowing me into his home, all this stuff, he's a very nice gentleman, he starts saying he's humble and stuff like that, and he's a real good guy, and George Stephanopoulos goes, he's a real good guy, but he has 150 to 200,000 people in prison camps. And this is the moment where I'm surprised we weren't talking about it back then. Maybe it was covered briefly, but he says, isn't it funny that we do the same thing in America? Wow. But then he doesn't back it up. He can't articulate. He has something really good there. But he does not articulate why he feels that way. And then he kind of goes and doesn't really address that head on after it. And he's talking about human rights violations. But if I were to go and say how I feel Dennis Rodman meant by that statement, is meant the disproportionate representation of black and minorities in the American prison system. Right? So we have 1 in 3 black males going to prison. We have, and the statistic is definitely, higher for African Americans, Latino men, and then it goes to the women as well. And then, of course, it's white after that, being significantly less. Dennis Rodman is hitting that. He's like, yo, we have the highest number of incarcerated people, 2 million. I know, of course, I think it's like 700 per, like 100,000 or something as far as the...
707.
707 per 100,000, I think it is. As far as an estimate that we pulled up, statistic-wise. But I know North Korea, they don't really have an exact estimate of how many people are actually imprisoned, but they estimate it's between 500 to 600 per 100,000, which of course the United States has a population of about 300 million, I believe. I could be wrong with estimates, maybe a little lower, a little over. But North Korea is estimated to have a 25 million population. But at the end of the day, I think Dennis Rodman is trying to highlight that fact, that minority representation in the prison system creates its own prison camp, where we're going directly at one person or one group, rather than, it being something like that. And the prison system here gets a lot more complicated and a lot more, the lines and complexity of it go through racial lines, everything. Money, poverty, all that stuff is calculated within that. And I feel Dennis Rodman was trying to articulate that at that time, where he's like, we do the same thing. Let's start off from a position of common ground, talk human to human, then we could start addressing other things that are going on. Amy would like to add on to it.
Let's say with the Dennis Rodman thing, yeah, like that you were saying, he wasn't able to get it off. Like, if he was able to say it, while on that stage, articulate that, it would have been more of an impact, and then they would have seen Kim Jong-un possibly in the way that Dennis Rodman, he was saying that he was like a big kid, taking selfies, a fan of the basketball game. He even told him, he said, Dennis Rodman said that, because he made some basketball thing happen there, he brought the basketball event or some basketball something with that, over there to North Korea. He brought it, he kept his word, even though he, at the time, didn't say, he said, I don't know how it's going to happen. But he gave him the word, and he actually completed that, and Kim Jong-un was like, hey man, you're the first person that has kept his word with me. Everybody else was probably saying a whole bunch of stuff, but they were going back on the word, which I think is very important. Nowadays, like your word or people's words doesn't mean a jack thing now. Now you have to have like verification steps, like wherever you go, like even stuff like emails and things like that, because there's hackers, there's thieves, there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's people, man, people out there that not only don't keep their word, but they do stupid stuff or bad stuff.
And it's just interesting to point out that in that video he had said, why, I've talked to President Obama, he's like, give him a call, right? So give Kim Jong-un a call. Barack Obama didn't really reply, didn't acknowledge Dennis Rodman. Now, I know Dennis Rodman's a colorful character and stuff, of course, but this has to have some big legitimacy, because the CIA at the time, or FBI, had said that he knew more than anybody in the world, and they considered that dangerous. He knew more about North Korea and Kim Jong-un than they did, intelligence. So he's telling Barack Obama, hey, you like basketball? He likes basketball. Why not start doing some basketball diplomacy, right? So, and he was basically put off by him. Now, as far as it goes with President Trump, I don't know why, but he feels like he's got more headway with that. And there was an interview, you can look it up on the internet, it's very emotional that he did. It was with CNN, they were interviewing him, and he got very emotional. He said when he came back after the initial time of being in North Korea, he would receive death threats. People were telling him that, like he should die and all this. He couldn't go back to his house. It was very, very emotional. And he said what he was trying to do was he was trying to at least get something going as far as diplomatic, relations went. He was an ambassador. Whether we like it or not, the White House, I know, officially released a statement that he wasn't a part of the summit, even though he landed in Singapore. There's been gestures saying that he gave Kim Jong-un books from Donald Trump. As far as that goes, he's dropping, and it seems like he may have received, at least had somewhat of a voice in this. Not directly, but maybe on the outside. And Dennis Rodman was brought to tears by this and stuff like that. And it's just interesting. And he even said that he received a call. I don't know the validity of it, but he said he received a call from a secretary within Donald Trump's, people that went over to the summit. And he said that they thanked him for all the work that he's done previously, acknowledging him. And, we can't talk about the current state of affairs without Dennis Rodman. Like, we really can't. Like, I can't stress that enough of him being an ambassador there, being unlikely. And it would almost be as if something happened in the future and we had the greatest basketball of our generation, greatest basketball player of our generation probably being LeBron James. Seeing LeBron on stage, many people would argue and say maybe Kobe Bryant or stuff, but this isn't a basketball discussion. I'm trying to use an analogy here. One of LeBron James' most colorful teammates, I would have to say, would probably have to be J.R. Smith at this point with the impact of it. So let's say J.R. Smith was over there and he was going over there. Maybe he would be like an ambassador to something like maybe Russia, if we say in the future or something like that. Somehow he pulls that off. He's over there chalking it up with the Vladimir Putin or something like that,
Drinking vodka.
Drinking vodka, all that stuff. So, and you have him being that, but you would have to acknowledge, yes, he had some colorful times on the court, maybe, but he's over there doing something. And I think at the end of the day, we need to see that first.
Yeah, I want to say something on that too, that Dennis Rodman said, like, he was pointing out that, hey, those people in North Korea, they have hearts too. And I think what he's like showing is like, hey, like, it's a very basic thing. These people are people still. and I think there might be I'm not sure like the majority or if it's most people that want to think this, but I mean some people don't really want that North Korea thing to happen. Maybe a lot of people want them to be annihilated. Even so, I mean this is just possible like thinking here. Like you have the theories, of what people might be thinking towards that. But I would say North Korea, they have people. If nobody else but Dennis Rodman actually visited, that place, we should not assume that these people are bad and their leader is just some guy. These people don't even know. A lot of people speak on things they don't know, and they get slapped.
And it's not minimizing what Kim Jong-un has done or the atrocities that have happened to the people of North Korea. Because you got to realize that they're fed propaganda news. There, of course, people are at prison camps being tortured and stuff of that nature. And things aren't necessarily... Oh, William, you wanted to add in?
Oh, well, no, I was going to let you finish. Then.
No, but it's not like minimizing the stuff that go on there, but we need to at least find a common ground and acknowledge the humanity of a person at least before we start addressing issues. So.
And I just want to throw in, and yes, hi everybody, I am on the side over here. I just wanted to throw in my personal opinion. One thing Helmet over here said is that people don't care about these people. I actually believe a lot of this is the opposite. I think a lot of people do care. That's why it's getting so much publicity. I think that's why there's a lot of hatred going on, no doubt, from past atrocities that have gone on. But I think that you have Trump looking at this situation as an opportunity rather than just stone-faced diplomacy, which has been going on already and obviously hasn't worked. I don't know, though in the past, we've tried doing concessions and it never really worked out. I think Trump is looking at this from a business standpoint, and if you connect other things that Trump is doing in the world today, you've got him putting sanctions on different countries for steel production. I wouldn't be surprised, and mark my words, this will be the first person that's probably ever said this, is that you would see North Korea potentially become the new China. And by new China, I don't mean like China of today. I mean the China of 5-10 years ago, who went through an industrial revolution to get to the point where they're at today. They have the population, they have the will to be able to construct, they have the motivation. Ballistic missile systems don't just build themselves. You would have all the resources to be able to build, the manufacturing power to be able to build. I think that you're going to see just as much tension with North Korea as you've always seen with China for the same reasons. When we basically have given the ability for China to develop so much so that, now it's a game of how do you put a halt on it, and I think that's a reflection on America as a whole. That's a whole other, could be deep topic, but America's interests, America's view on all this, I really do think it's extension, as you will, of taking what's going on and using it for America's advantage for industrialization and manufacturing. And we don't do it in the U.S. anymore. We've become this service-based country where we provide the services, but now we outsource all the actual labor for it, whether it be call centers, whether it be manufacturing of parts, and that doesn't go for just steel, that goes for, chips and electronics and everything that we do. And then you have the U.S. basically being like the managers for all that. We come up with the designs. Apple comes up with the design, and then they sell it to go. They allow somebody in China or another country to develop. Nike comes up with a new shoe. It's made in like Thailand. We just don't manufacture anymore. We're the idea builders. And I think Trump personified that as well during that conversation with Kim Jong-un to say, real estate, like he had a conversation with Kim Jong-un about imagine seeing that with real estate, North Korea with real estate all over the place. It shows you that Trump's mindset is not that of a politician, but as a businessman. And I'm just saying, like, mark my words, I really do think that Trump's going to start pushing an era with North Korea to make them more of an industrial power. But that's all I got to say about that. That's my conspiracy theory for the day.
No, but I mean, William brings up a really good point. So, I mean, and after after all these things are going down, we slap China, with the tariffs and stuff like that. And that's basically giving them a backhand slap because they're kind of facilitating this meeting with Kim Jong-un and the U.S. Because they're two big allies that play in with North Korea, or at least are viewed as really big allies and contributors because China's their biggest trade partner. Russia, back when it was the Soviet Union and stuff like that, really helped out North Korea, but when they collapsed, North Korea experienced a famine around 1990, 1992 around there. But, we have these big things going on. Other players are getting involved. Iran, because of the recent back out of our deal with them. We're going, just dealing with a lot of the other repercussions that are being seen around the world.
Yeah, they have a high, they increased in nuclear activity since then. Which is,
Yeah, so basically.
Yeah, with all these players though, we just have to see what's gonna happen because we're pretty much getting updated, as time goes by. Yeah, so a whole lot of things in this world that are happening right now. Like one of our discussions, about Venezuela. Like you look at that and that's. Yeah.
That's another thing I just wanted to say. I think at the grand scheme of things, North Korea is a small picture that's being made into a big pond, and you got big ponds that are being made into as if they're puddles. And I think you have North Korea that's been in this situation for well over 50 years, and nothing has changed in the status of this country, and we make it like as if this poor country is like all suddenly poor, and the only reason why we even give them a wink of attention is because of the potential for nuclear weapons. You got other countries in the world right now, and we did a subject about Venezuela before, and I find that it's very disturbing that we have the audacity to go, well, look at all the things that Kim Jong-un has done. Well, what about all the things other world leaders do? Besides Kim Jong-un, and what's going on right now in other countries, yet all because this guy could potentially put a nuclear weapon on the table. That's the only reason that he even gets a seat at the table, which then, by the way, just motivates other countries to do the exact same thing, which at the grand scheme of things, you want to denuclearize the world. That's not the way to do it. You need to be able to put everybody at the table without the weapons. You can't have everybody at the table with big sticks. If you're talking about not wanting to have everybody with big sticks, you can't ignore the people that don't have the sticks, because eventually that person's gonna go find a stick to come up to the table. And in the grand scheme, I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing. Countries should be able to defend themselves, however means they decide to do so. But it's a hypocritical argument in the U.S. to tell another country that, they, or say like they're doing human rights violations and things like that, when they sit at the comfort of being at the table. And benefit from it too, because there's a lot of benefits that are going on right now from anything that goes on in regards to being a superpower that none of these other countries have. And I think that's just all I really have to say about that. I really feel that North Korea is made into a much bigger situation than it needs to be.
Because of the nuclear weapons being on the table. And of course, we're not immune to human rights violations either. We're doing that sort of thing. Even right now, we could say it too with stuff that's going on as far as immigration goes, and things of that nature, and how we present certain things here. We've done a lot of human rights violations, I can tell you that. But I would rather see peace happen than us being focused on this stuff. I mean, it is a concern, but at the end of the day, something needs to happen. And again, weapons being brought on the table, we don't see us usually negotiating with people who don't have weapons. Have weapons of mass destruction, might I add that. And that's a whole reason for us to go into wars, is weapons of mass destruction, or at least hints that there may be weapons of mass production being produced. You wanted to add something in?
Yeah, I was gonna ask something about the UN. How much nations are in that?
Let's see if we can pull up
Because
the
I
exact.
think I heard that North Korea didn't have anything like at all. Like I think it was the UN that said
193 nations.
That's a lot of nations then, but I don't know if North Korea was actually one of them in there, which I don't think they were.
Yep,
And if
they are
were-
in 1991.
Oh, have they kept that too?
Yeah.
Have they kept them? Oh, that's weird then. They have a
There's a-
table there, or they have a place there, but
At the end of the day, we kind of brush off people who we don't see as either economic powers or, weapons of mass destruction powers, like, William was pointing out. We kind of overlook those people, those players in the game. Or maybe they were once a big producer for us, and we kind of say, okay, now we don't need them anymore. Let's not really worry about them. And, we start getting away from that.
people are selfish.
Selfish?
Straight up, like Maduro.
Yeah. Just like that guy from
Shots
Venezuela.
fired, calling you out.
But yeah, it's just crazy seeing these things. And of course, the immigration stuff might be the subject of another matter. A subject, we might do that maybe upcoming in another Food for Thought podcast. You guys have anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap things up? Alrighty, everyone. This is Food for Thought Unchained, bringing you the podcast, our Korean events discussion. Hopefully you enjoy it, catching on the VOD. Like, subscribe, comment. We really like your comments. When you comment back, we'll reply, and maybe make it like a paragraph or essay reply. No, I'm just kidding. You'll get a reply back, a good one. We'll be there. Of course, I'm Zach. This is Hemi. William's off in the corner. Yay! You see his hand. This is Food for Thought Unchained. Don't be chained by the mind society tries to give you.